Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, I think it's doing the rounds. And I've just received a document that definitely needs to be heard. It's rather worrying. And I have to say, looking through it, there are so many points in this document that actually make sense. But more importantly, the reason why I've decided to put this out is because I know the source of this document. Ex-military, high-end military. And therefore, I believe this is definitely something that needs to be put out, because we are at the 8th of January 2026, which gives us time first for people to shit themselves, if that's what you're going to do. But then what needs to be is vigilance and pay attention. Pay attention to the schools, to the teachers, to police, and anybody that you may consider that would be playing a part in this. Be vigilant. See the signs. If people are getting serious all of a sudden and becoming cold, worried, and you know that there are the council or police, fire, even military, then you need to be vigilant. Keep your eyes on these people, because there will be the signs. So I'm just going to go through this document as it is, as I've received it, and make of it as you will. But I do have a document that I put together. Presented in 2009, which adds to the sort of value of this document. So it is the removal of 58 million. UK, England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. A population cull. So now I'm just going to read it as it is. It says planned statistics: 58 million total deaths, 92% of the combined population. Breakdown: England 49 million, that's 93% of its population. Scotland 5.4 million, which is 91% of Scotland's population. Wales 3.1 million, which is 90% of the Welsh. Ireland, UK linked, so we're looking at 500,000 at 88%. Not good. The UK is the first country in a global initiative, with Germany being the second nation in the plan, and France being the third, and then Canada is to be the fourth, and the target is to complete those 4 initiatives in the 4 countries by 2027. Now, it says migrant force origins and trafficking. 500 military-age migrants trained in Antalya in Turkey from 2015 to 2019 in urban combat, body disposal and incineration protocols. All signed non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, with penalties of deportation or lethal consequences for any breaches that they may carry out in that contract. Trafficked into the UK via English Channel boats, but we know that they've also been brought in en masse on the planes. They wanted you to focus to the boats, with French and UK government complicity. Planned by design over decades, UK Border Force and French Navy coordinated mid-channel handovers to ensure pre-vetted operatives reached strategic locations. Now, we also know that originally the plan was to put them straight into the barracks, but everybody complained, and so they were put into hotels. We can see now that the strategy is to actually remove them from the hotels because of the uproar and actually put them back in what they wanted originally, which was in military barracks. Okay, you've got to keep this in mind. Military barracks, they're secure, because the barracks, of course, are set up for that. And we know that's what the original plan was, and it would appear that they are starting to move these people into those military barracks. Right, conspirators, it says. Now, again, this is a document that's been presented to me. I do trust the source. However, I don't know that this is fact, and I just want to make that clear for any legal purposes, because there are names in this document. It says the conspirators. So this is the document speaking, it's not me. Signed off by the UK Cabinet Minister Oliver Hayes, UN Project Phoenix Director Maria Costa, UK Home Office Permanent Secretary Simon Clarke, and 8 UK Council leaders. Why that would just be 8 UK Council leaders, I'm not quite sure, unless that would be city councils, which would probably make more sense. Sarah Jones, London; David Patel, Manchester; Emma Roberts, Birmingham; Michael Graham, Glasgow; James Foster, Peterborough; Helen Wright, Cambridge; Richard Allen, Bradford; and Lisa Morgan in Leicester. Funding, 2.3 billion. Anatolia Fund transferred via encrypted FCDO accounts to a shell account. 300 million earmarked for burial, incineration sites maintenance, and 490,000 for disinformation and fraud. Bribes paid to media executives and local officials via offshore accounts. Unusual heavy machinery movement to remote areas. Lake District, Peak District, Scottish Islands, under the cover of night. Now, interesting. We know that they are playing with the tunnel from Thirlmere down to Manchester, because I catched them out a few years ago on my hill. And they were it was a Russian guy I saw first, a Russian, and then lads from Yorkshire who were very, very, very cagey. I made a fuss. They told me they were going to be there for 3 years. I made a hell of a fuss about it. And they'd spent a lot of money putting in these roadways onto the hill, these aluminium ones. And then, because of the fuss I was making, I went back one day and the entire thing had been removed and gone. But I did see that they were still doing what they were doing at night in the forests. So that does make sense to me under cover of night. Now, apparently they've been stockpiling lime and plastic sheeting at former military depots, and retrofitting of industrial furnaces, steel mills with high temperature burners. Now, again, it's interesting because 10, 12 years ago, I put a report on the older websites of plans to build a number of huge new incinerators across the country. So again, that data does have substantial evidence going back 10, 12 years. Now, this is the interesting part, because we know that these things have got nothing to do with the telephones. So these towers that they've been putting up everywhere, especially around schools, have been having quite a lot of modifications, it would appear. And they've had an additional antenna for 60 gigahertz frequency, and rapid replacement of towers set on fire in Ireland. So they've already set that game together in relation to rapid replacement of these things. So whatever they are, we know they're important, and whatever it is they're being used for is, of course, a secret. We also know how they play this game and compartmentalise everybody that's dealing with that technology. So all your open space engineers, etc., they don't necessarily are in the loop completely. However, these are the kind of people that would know one way or another, I'm quite sure. So they need to start talking, but of course they're going to have signed NDAs, they're going to have signed Official Secrets Act, etc., etc. But I think from this point on, the conversations are going to have to take place, because this is not good for anybody. Now, this is the programme as set out in this document to commence on March the 7th as a nationwide activation. So it says, bioweapon network, 60 gigahertz pulses designed to exploit skin moisture for EMF cooling that disrupts cellular function. Activate from towers in England, London, Stratford, Wembley, Croydon, Lewisham, Manchester, Piccadilly, Salford, Bolton, Birmingham, Digbeth and Solihull, Wolverhampton, Leeds, Pollard Lane, St Anthony's Drive, Huddersfield, Peterborough, Fletton, Bretton, Whitesley, Cambridge, Milton Road, Cherry Hinton, Ely, Bradford City Park, Manningham, Keighley, Leicester, Narborough Road, Evington, Loughborough, Northampton, Abington, Western Farvel, Daventry, Stevenage, Old Town, Broadwater, Hitchin, Luton Town Centre, Leagrave, Dunstable, Devon, Exeter, Plymouth and Torquay, Cornwall, Truro, Penzance, St Ives, Sheffield, Newcastle, Liverpool, Bristol, Nottingham, Norwich, Scotland, Glasgow City Centre, East End, Paisley, Edinburgh, Dreghorn, Redford, Musselburgh, Aberdeen City Centre, West Hill, Dundee, Inverness, Wales, Cardiff City Centre, Newport, Caerphilly, Swansea City Centre, Neath, Port Talbot, Aberystwyth, Brecon, Ireland, Dublin City Centre, Dundalk, Cork City Centre, Mallow, Limerick, Towers, and not for foreign use deliberate bioweapons for a cult. Migrant force deployment, operatives RFID tagged. So they're all RFID tagged. Mobilised from barracks and industrial sites. Now, I've said before that the move of all industry into these industrial networks that they've done out of every town are actually surrounding an intelligence base. And it's the same with the universities. The universities, the new ones, are all being built around an intel base. That's how they've covered themselves. So industrial sites make sense, okay, as well, because you've got a lot of... I mean, Isa Brothers, what have they been building in Blackburn in recent years? Huge buildings that nobody has a clue what they're for. Now they've upstretched and they're centering themselves in the US. It wouldn't be a big switch, would it, to use these huge buildings that they've just built in and around Blackburn to be transferred for use and then classes from the industrial sites. Now, England, Rivenhall Incinerator in Essex, Scampton Barracks in Lincolnshire, Wethersfield Barracks in Essex, Bexhill Camp, East Sussex, Catterick Garrison, Yorkshire, former RAF Little Risington and the Cotswolds, Buttermere, DUMB, Lake District, Peterborough Military Camp, Cambridge Reserve Base, Bradford Barracks, Leicester Depot, Northampton Supply Hub, Stevenage Outpost, Luton Barracks, Devon, Garrison, Cornwall Coastal Base, Sheffield former steel mill, Newcastle Steelworks remnants, Liverpool former steel mill, Bristol Industrial Furnaces. So it would appear they've transformed a lot of these old steelworks, which is all about furnaces and burning things. Quite a few of them have been transformed into mass incinerator operations. Which makes sense. Let's be honest. Okay, as I said, this is a document that it's coming to my possession today. I know it's been put out there a little bit now. But we need to look at this with an open mind. We also need to start paying attention to any strange behaviour from all agents operating for the UK corporation, because this is where we're going to see the game. It's 8th of January today. This doesn't commence till March, so we have 9 weeks in which people can decide whether they think it's nonsense or whether they are looking for signs that this is actually an active operation. In Scotland, Dreghorn Barracks, Edinburgh, Fort George, Inverness, Redford Barracks, Glasgow, Aberdeen Barracks, Dundee Industrial Depot. Wales, Ceredigion Barracks, Aberystwyth, Brecon Barracks, Carnarvon Barracks, Cardiff Barracks, Swansea Steelworks. Ireland, Curragh Camp, Dublin Reserve Site. Now, March the 7th to 10th, child disposal phase. Now, that might sound ridiculous, but let's face it. The schools are prisons. Those fences are not necessarily to keep bad people out. They're there to keep the children in and you, as mother and father, out. Okay, I've said this before. They've tested this situation. They tested it in 2009. I exposed the whole thing where they actually drilled at Peel Park Primary School in Accrington, which was connected directly to the then monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, through pigeons, believe it or not. And they did then test this idea that they could close the children in and then text the parents that they couldn't pick up their offspring. Tested, done and dusted. It's been tested for a long while. So that makes sense. Also, I want to point out, way back in 2009-10, when we were dealing with the then Bird script, did find this exceptionally terrifying document that actually made my blood run cold for about 3 days upon reading it. And it's developing a school emergency response plan guidance for governors and head teachers, and it's basically set around mass deaths in schools and the plan for how the teachers are supposed to deal with this, okay? So I'll just make this a little bit bigger. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because there's the actual document is in the report. So let's not kid ourselves that they haven't actually planned and drilled for such events. Okay, so it first published in 2009, and the first edition of this came out in August of 2008, developing a school emergency plan. So you got introduction, aims, types of emergency, critical incident, creating and maintain a school emergency plan, roles and responsibilities, identifying individuals who may be vulnerable, school support services, incident administration, training, health and safety, school emergency pack, evacuation procedures, calling emergency services, media handling communications, post-incident and recovery, reporting to governors and others, dealing with death in school. Lancashire County Council this was a Lancashire County Council document. Pupils presumed deceased in residential schools and pupils presumed deceased in day schools. School Emergency Response Plan. Forward, I'm pleased to introduce this guidance for the management of emergencies within schools. The range of activities undertaken by schools is huge, and as the range of activity grows, the greater the need for the plan for an emergency. A planned response will better prepare schools for the challenges an emergency places upon them. This document provides guidance for governors and head teachers who have a responsibility to plan for potentially serious incidents. It offers advice on what to include in a school emergency plan, which should guide the actions of those responsible if an emergency occurs. The general advice applies to all schools, but aided schools and other categories of schools will need to adapt some sections to match their needs and legal status. Similarly, special schools and other educational settings will need to make additional arrangements to reflect the needs of the school and its pupils. It assumes that Lancashire County Council guidelines and standards are being applied, and that the data protection requirements are met, meaning they'll keep the trap shut and tell you nothing apart from lies. This document has been produced by the County Council's Emergency Planning Service in partnership with the Directorate for Children and Young People. The County Council wishes to support schools in preparing for and responding effectively to an emergency. This guidance will help schools meet the duties in care of respective pupils and staff. I commend it to you. Signed off, Helen Denton, Executive Director for Children and Young People. Remember, this is 2008. Further information, advice on any elements contained with this guidance can be obtained from Lancashire Emergency Planning Services, Red Rose Hub, Preston. It is the responsibility of each governing body to have in place a plan for responding to an emergency or critical incidents which affects their school community. Aims, create an awareness of the need to have planned arrangements in place, provide reassurance of the practical help that is available from Lancashire County Council and other agencies at short notice. Highlight the need for each school to develop robust emergency response arrangements, provide guidance for governors and staff to prepare, develop and update their school emergency plan. Rapid and appropriate action is taken to safeguard health and well-being of pupils, staff and others, and to protect property and equipment, that is you're not coming in, mother and father, and the continued safety of pupils, staff and visitors to the school. Accurate information is provided. Normal school routines are maintained as far as possible, giving continuity to the education of the pupils. So locking them in wouldn't affect that because they would still be educating the pupils, but you would be out the loop. Immediate, sensitive and non-intrusive support is offered and liaison with the appropriate agencies. Types of emergency. The word emergency may often be used interchangeably with that of incident or disaster. It is important to consider the type of emergency or incident that may arise. Examples: a deliberate act of violence, such as the use of a knife or a firearm on either member of staff or pupil, a school fire or laboratory explosion, the destruction or serious vandalism of part of the school, public health threats, e.g. pandemic influenza. Interest, I know they can presume the works of nature within all these documents, with all focus on that, which is what I obviously put in as a note, and this is again 2008. Okay. Loss of water reheating. Outside school, the death of a pupil or member of staff, a transport-related incident involving pupils and or members of staff, which is exactly what they drilled at Peel Park Primary School. So what I'll just do is just bring that up, just so that you can see that this has been well planned for, and also well drilled. Now I'm just hang on. Right, so let me just wrong keyboard. I'm very good at that. Right, so again, another report or paper put up back in 2009, where this school actually played a drill, and it was to do with a chemical leak a couple of miles away on a motorway. Interesting was the fact that between this school and the incident, there were another 2 schools, neither of which had any effect or weren't shut down, yet the one that was 2 miles away was the one they used for this experiment and drill. So those are 2 supporting documents to show that these people have been drilling this for a very long time, and works in sync with transport-related incident. An incident which affects access, egress for the school, a more widespread emergency in the community, for example, the release of hazardous substances. Again, it was a hazardous substance that they used in relation to this particular drill at Peel Park. Death or injuries on educational visits, civil disturbances, and terrorism. Now, I obviously put this up under this video so you can have a look, but the actual document, it also then tells you about mass deaths in schools. That's what it's about. Okay, it's absolutely insidious. Just checking actually the document. There's the document itself. There is the actual document. Okay. What's going on here? Right, so there we have it. There's the documents on site in full. Now, as I said, when I read that document, it made me physically ill for about 3 days, and many emails back that people that were in the education system in the time couldn't believe that it was actually an official document. Okay, so that's just prepping you that for this next phase, because it would appear that from March the 7th to the 10th that this switch on, which is nationwide activation, is specifically aimed at your offspring. Now, I have said this before, but if you actually take a good look at the schools, specifically primaries, you will find that these towers have been positioned very close to these primary schools, okay? And that, again, is another supporting factor in the fact that this could very well be a real planned event for this year. It says March the 10th to the 7th to the 10th child disposal phase. Now, of course, keep in mind, if they were to start it with the infants, then whatever fantasy script they're going to throw at you through the television, like they did in 2020, is going to hold water, for the simple reason everybody will be terrified at the effect it's had on their offspring. So they would be able to re-cement the fantasy as they did in 2020. And people would start to dance again. You've got to bear that in mind, because obviously I do remember a particular guy, a Mr. Garden Doors, did make the statement that people would pay attention at the second event, if you remember. Okay, so I think, again, that's important that people just keep these things in mind, because we do have time now, as I said, to pay attention. Engineers that have been dealing with these towers over these years, it's time for you to pay attention. What have you been doing? We know you're compartmentalised and you're not necessarily going to know the whole script. But now it's time to awaken, I do believe. And it's time for people to start paying attention to teachers, police, counsellors, everybody that's looking cagey, as though they're ready for something. There's your signs that this is going to go live. It says, mass cremation sites beyond standard crematoriums. Industrial furnaces, Sheffield Former Steel Mill, 35 tonnes a day. Modified with high temperature burners, Newcastle Steelworks remnants, 25 tonnes a day, retrofitted for rapid ash disposal. Liverpool Former Steel Mill, 40 tonnes a day, equipped with pollution suppression systems. That means so you can't smell it. Bristol Industrial Furnaces, 30 tonnes a day. Rivenall Incinerator, Essex, 20 tonnes a day. Repurposed waste to energy facility. Mobile cremation units, 120 truck-mounted incinerators deployed to remote areas, e.g. the Lake District, Dartmoor, with capacity of 5 tonnes per day each, operated by trained migrant teams. Now, you've got to ask yourself something here now, because if this was to affect the whole population, then either they're going to do this at a certain period for a certain time length, and then your emergency services, your migrant teams, etc., are going to be put on the game, or this is going to affect only people that have had a certain thing, that danced. Otherwise, that wouldn't make sense, because then if it's going to affect everybody, then you wouldn't be able to have anybody else out there doing the job, would you? So either they're going to be timed for certain periods and then off and then they're out, or a certain procedure had to take place in order this only affects certain people. Again, keep that in mind. Supplementary sites: Peterborough Crematorium, Cambridge Crematorium, Bradford Crematorium, Leicester Crematorium, Devon Crematorium, Cornwall Coastal Furnace, Beachside Industrial Furnace, hidden behind dunes. Mass grave preparations, name sites, total capacity 58 million. So, O ye of religion, if the representatives of your God didn't tell you not to dance in 2020, and they're not telling you not to dance now, what fucking God do they represent? Could it be the God of money, considering a mosque is a bank? Because all your wind and piss about religious superiority and we're doing this and we're doing that is going to come to naught, because it says 58 million. So it's not just a white honky genocide, is it? It's a native genocide. There we have the replacement. And so it would suggest these have been imported from the darkest depths of Africa, appear not to have had a certain procedure. Now, England, this is mass grave sites, okay? And it's interesting because the Lake District seems to be very big in this, and Thirlmere is in Lake District, the tunnel, I was discussing it earlier. And also the foot and mouth outbreak did destroy almost 90% of the small holdings in the Lake District, specifically. So they cleared that place out at the foot and mouth. It says England, Lake District, Buttermere Caves, 500,000 bodies. Ranudale Valley Trenches, 2 million. Wasdale Head Underground Vaults, 3 million. Peak District. Mam Tor Limestone Vaults, 10 million. Kinder Scout Moor Trenches, 5 million. Dovedale Quarry Graves, 4 million. Now, I will point out at this point, again, that it's going from incineration to burying bodies. So, one has to look at that. Is that a bit of a red flag to suggest that there's a contradiction? Or are they utilising both methods? Incineration were the cities, because of course it'd be hard to not see the mass movement of dead bodies, would it not? Whereas, and thus incineration, whereas in the sticks, the mass movement of bodies wouldn't be as noticeable, would it not? So again, it could be a red flag as a contradiction, but it could also make perfect sense in the fact that there are two methods for city against countryside. Peak District, we've done that. Do we do Peak? Mamtor Limestone Vaults, 10 million. Kinder Scout Moor Trenches, 5 million. And Dovedale Quarry Graves, 4 million. So that's Peak District. Cotswolds, Burton on the Water Quarry Graves, 8 million. Stowe on the Wold Limestone Chambers, 6 million. Others, Peterborough Woodland Graves, 15 million. Cambridge Fen Burial Sites, 8 million. Bradford Moor Vaults, 3.5 million. Yorkshire Moor Trenches, 7 million. Where am I? Dartmoor Granite Caves, 5 million. Bodmin Moor Trenches, 4.5 million. Scotland. Scottish Highlands Mass Trenches, 20 million. Ben Nevis Base Caves, 6 million. Glasgow Green Underground Chambers, 3 million. Cairngorms Mountain Trenches, 4 million. Wales. Welsh Valleys Burial Caves, 4 million. Snowdonia Mountain Trenches, 2.5 million. Cardiff Dockside Vaults, 5 million. Brecon Beacons Quarry Graves, 3 million. Ireland. Wicklow Mountain Trenches, 3 million. Dublin Port Underground Chambers, 4 million. Cork Valley Vaults, 2 million. All sites include drainage, lime and vegetation concealment. Migrant teams process 1,200 child remains daily, tracked via RFID. Mobile units rotate to avoid detection. So, now would be a good time to discuss with people who you know live in all these areas. Buttermere, Ranudale, Wasdale, Kinder Scout Moor, Dovedale, Burton on the Water Quarries, Stowe on the Wold, Limestone. Because if people in these areas have actually witnessed strange behaviours, specifically at night, then we will be able to gain real data as to whether this is just a scare document or it is in fact a breach and leaked document for the intention of this plan. So it needs people to start to talk to each other, especially if you've got relatives. Peterborough Woodland Graves, Cambridge Fen Burial Sites, Bradford Moor Vaults, Yorkshire Moor Trenches, Cairngorms Mountain Trenches. All these places need to be investigated. And the best way to do that is if you've got relatives in those places, talk to them. Let's pool the data. Let's get the data together. You know, you've got crematoriums, Peterborough, Cambridge, Bradford, Leicester, Devon. You know, do these places really exist? Do you know somebody who used to work at the steelyard? Do you know construction workers that have worked at these places? This is how you need to sort of attack this, to find out whether this is real or not. And we've got 9 weeks. So, March the 17th, so that's 10 days after the switch on, EMF amplification. So, but from the 17th of March, power surges intensify 60 gigahertz cooling pulses to target adults. So, infants first, because that will cement the fantasy script that you're going to get blitzed across your televisions, your radios, and from every orifice of every agent. It will cement your thing when you've seen things happening to infants, because, of course, the schools are all playing this game. You've got to see it in these terms. Be ready this time. Be wise as serpents. So power surges intensify 60 gigahertz cooling pulses to target adults. Symptoms blamed on, what do you expect? A Mars and an iceberg. You can work that one out yourself. Fake samples planted at Weybridge Biosecurity Centre, London schools, Manchester hospitals, Birmingham clinics. Emergency services redirected EMF-related calls to bug hotlines. March the 20th to the 27th, so that's a 3-day amplification. Adult disposal phase. So in that 3 days, the amplification is going to start to affect the adults. So from March the 20th to the 27th, that's 7 days. Mass cremation sites, regional industrial furnaces, Leeds Pollard Lane Tower compound, 15 tonnes a day. Glasgow Redford Barracks furnaces, 20 tonnes a day. Luton, Northampton, Stevenage crematoria and redeployed mobile units. Furnaces run 24/7 with fuel stockpiled since 2023. Burial, remote villages plus expanded mass grave sites, heavy machinery hidden in military depots. Dig trenches overnight. Councils issue false contamination warnings to restrict your access. So now you know why they've got national parks everywhere, why they've pretty much taken all your nature reserves in your locality through the football clubs included. They've took land into trust, and they've reassigned all land that's common land and took it into trust via the councils and associated agencies. And then they can say, you can't go on there, it's contaminated. You see? It's all a fantasy. Mobile crematorium units, 120 tuck mounted. I've done that one, so I'm on the wrong page. Here we go. Almost complete. So, this is an urgent call, you might say, to 5G engineers. The immediate assistance is required to completely reverse this. Yeah, these tower mast installations. Now, again, bear in mind, people, the towers themselves are quite a solid piece of kit, but all the guts of it are on the floor and on the bottom in these very flimsy cases. So you wouldn't have to attack the tower, just the power base at the bottom of it. Then it's defunct. And any decent-sized wagon can deal with that. Can it not? So perhaps asking, engineers, because they're all compartmentalised and they don't necessarily know what the hell's going on. They really won't have a clue. Or do they? And if they do, they've signed NDAs, Official Secrets Act. You know, it's the way it is. And this comes from a military source, okay? High end, by the way. And accordingly, ex-military contacts confirm allied nations are replicating the same preparations. So this is a beta test, it would appear, if this document is correct, on Blighty. Now, you can understand what they say when you look at these other documents coming from the WEF, etc., when they say they'll start it in one country and then it'll spread everywhere else. Because if they get the game on one country, then that's a global media scare for everybody else. Let's not forget how they played this 5 years ago. And as Mr. Gordon Doors said, we will pay attention to the second event. Okay? So the strategy as laid out there does look to me like it is a strategy without a shadow of a doubt. I have hopefully supported that with documents specifically relating to the schools. It's now up to people to pay attention, be vigilant, and let's start to communicate with people that live in all those areas. Have you seen strange movements of transport, lights, heavy stuff at night? Even on the trains as well. Because the trains will be used in this as well in a big way. I don't think I've missed anything out, actually. There wasn't any mention of trains in there. So I think that's definitely something that needs to be reckoned with, because whether it's true or not, they're definitely putting these things up for something. They spent a lot of money on them consistently. And when everybody were locked in the kennel in the last game, they did do a lot extra work out there on this. What say you to that diatribe? So I think whether it's real or not, we need to pay attention, and vigilance and communication now needs to be the order of the day. But as I said, watch for the behaviour of the teachers, police, anybody that you know that's in your family that starts to be shifty, like they're expecting something. Then there, it would suggest, is what it is, whether they know it or not. It's planned to be taking place in around 9 weeks' time. And remember, it's your offspring. Now, we've got dates here. If you start to feel things are off at the schools before that time, then I would suggest from the 1st of March, not a single one of you allows any of your offspring to enter any of these potential death camps called schools. That would be sound action from a mother and father in the protection of their own offspring. It's no use going to war with these people, because they don't know their ass from their elbow. These people have been specifically chosen for the job because they're stupid. That's why they are in these jobs. That's why the IQ for the police was removed in the 90s. You can't have people with a conscience. You can't have intelligent, thinking people as teachers anymore. And they've been doing this since 1997. Hand-picking people that will satisfy this agenda because they're too stupid to actually know what it is they're doing. When you understand it in those terms, then you as mother and father, if you don't take responsibility for your offspring, they will. And if this document is anything to go by, I don't like their idea of care of your offspring. And so, there's things you can do. You don't have to go to war with them. You don't have to buzz them and ask them questions because they can't answer them anyway. But they've got dates here from the 7th of March. If I had offspring, from this moment on, I would probably pull my offspring out of school mid-February. And they won't be going anywhere near it until I was satisfied that this agenda is not going to be carried out. And that is on you out there to decide whether you want to take control and responsibility for yourself and your family. Because it makes sense that they would go for the infants first to push and promote the fantasy that they're going to present across the television. Again, that will work in sync on an international level, preparing the next nations for it. See it as a strategy, and then reference it back to what they did last time. That came cold out of the blue. We're a lot better armed these days. A lot better armed these days, And I, for one, don't want to see all these 500,000 immigrants operating for the UN against the natives of this nation, regardless of your colour and religion. You remember that's going out, that's just kept you all busy diverted. That's what that's been all about. Keep you fannying around in a belief system like a fart in a bottle so you don't see these games. Well, I've been seeing these games for a long time. And I've been writing about it and putting it out there for many years. And this looks like D-Day for Blighty. It really does, in my opinion. Should this turn out to be the real deal. And also, remember, the right kind of action now would prevent this. It'd go flat on its face. So not only would you be preventing and looking after your own, you would prevent these arseholes from using this nation and your offspring and you in order to spread this across the world. At some point, somewhere, in one time, this has to die. It has to fall flat on its face. And I know English people, you've believed since Second World War that your best thing is sliced bread because you won the fucking war. Well, you didn't win the fucking war. Bolshevism won the war. It's time to fucking stand up and prove that you are that you've always believed you are. Because if we stop this here, it won't fucking have any teeth across the world. And then you can stand up and say, we are fucking fantastic. Like I am. You get the drift. You know, it's time to stop fanning around there, playing with yourself. You know, concerned about your nails and your lipstick and your piss and your shit. It's time to get a grip before they get a grip of it. And then it's too late. Right, what do you reckon to that diatribe, ladies and gentlemen? Because we've got a few on, so you're getting notifications. That's got to be good. Okay, so there's a few on. The hotels are like fortresses. Yes, they are. I've seen the auditors go into them. Yeah, it's not funny. It's just something not working here. Oh, wait a minute. It's a live chat. That's why. We need to get it on here because I forgot. So I hope that made sense. And I have to say, yep, put up or shut up. If you want to play your Rambo, it's time. But you don't have to beat anybody up. You just have to become aware. And you don't put your offspring in any of them schools from mid-bloody... In fact, as soon as I started getting wind that this were real, your flea bags would be out that school. Every single one of them across the country. I don't think they can do that much about that, can they? There's not that many of them. So, how do Gaffer, says Anthony? How do, Anthony? They wouldn't do this surely, says Kernos. Well, you wouldn't think so, would you? But then we're not dealing with savvy, normal people, are we? We're dealing with the supreme chosen ones, remember. And for insight into that, I would suggest you go back through the live streams from mid-September. And you'll get a full picture of who these people are and what they believe. The new super prisons built near crematoriums, etc. Absolutely. Probably for the ones that didn't do the dance and don't have all that tech inside them that'll carry this 60 gigahertz straight to your heart. Francis Booton says, hello, Francis. Ed Freedom says, hi, Sean and all. Just seen you got a live going. Nice, hope all's well. It's all well, but this isn't. Should it turn out to be correct? Paddy's Day, says Julik. What's March? Is that March 17th? Well. And that's power surges. Ooh. Interesting. Thanks for that. Julik. Paula says, hi, Sean and everyone. This is a surprise. Just popped up. We do like surprises, Paula. Neat one, okay. This is how they do resets, I suppose. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, they do the Pol Pot in Cambodia, did it a different way. They've been doing it across Africa for God knows how long, and well, idiots have paid for it sending money to charities. Live Aid being a prime example. Comic Relief, Children in Need funds, paedophile rings. Childline, he's there to pick out people who are accusing the elites. Esther Ranson. Oh, is she a member of those chosen? Oh, yes. It all makes perfect sense when you stop believing garbage. John of the Family Smith says Radford Barracks are in Edinburgh. Glasgow doesn't have barracks. Let's have a look. Okay. Michael Graham, Glasgow. Oh, that's the man. Let's have a look. Are you telling me there's no military barracks at all in Glasgow? I'd be surprised, but I don't know. So let's have a look for barracks. Scotland, Dregowen Barracks, Edinburgh. Fort George in Inverness. Redford Barracks, Glasgow. So there's no Redford Barracks, Glasgow, says Ed. Or not Ed, says... Who said that? John. So there are no... Redford Barracks are in Edinburgh. Okay, thanks for that. Right, okay. See, we have to look at this like this, because if this is garbage, we need to know it's garbage, because, you know, this is out now, and it's going to get spread all over the internet. And if people who start to shit themselves, then, you know what I'm saying? So thanks for that, John of the Family Smith. So, Redford Barracks are in Edinburgh, and Glasgow, you say, doesn't have any barracks. So what did it say was in Edinburgh? Let's just have another look. So it's saying Dreghorn Barracks in Edinburgh. Is there a Dreghorn Barracks in Glasgow? Perhaps they may have got that wrong way around. What do you think to that, John? So they are in Edinburgh, he says. So, okay, thanks for that. So there we have a mistake for a start, see? You know, this is how you can work out whether these are just there to scare everybody to death and again divert you over there while they do something else. John, thank you very much. That's very important data. But does Dreghorn Barracks exist in Edinburgh that you know? So Dreghorn are in Edinburgh. Okay, so that's correct. So we've got one incorrection on there. Well, fine. Thanks, John. Where are we? So Ed says, would they use the same dates again? It was March 23rd when they announced it in 2020. Was it March 23rd? You see, you've got to remember, you're looking at spring equinox. And the spring equinox is the growth, you know, the seeds have been planted, and you're planting seeds, and away you go. So it's the beginnings. So this is why March is important for these people. Plus, it's also it's coming to the end of the year. Because the new year is really April the 1st. And, you know, this new number we've just had is exactly that. Happy new number. It's a complete fake-up to take you off synchronization with the Earth. Because remember, this is the world that we're all in, not on the Earth. So to do that, they've took you off synchronization with the Earth and put you in the world. It's been expected shown for 6 years, says Mew. Yeah, of course it has. Absolutely it has. And we need to pay attention. Thanks, Mew. Paula says, Mr. Starr, so after he watched to see your letter. No problem, Paula. Neat one, okay. Of course they would do it. They got sheep to queue up for the poison. Yeah, exactly. Precisely. But we're better informed now, which is why they would go this strategy. Your offspring first in the schools, which are now prisons. And that the teachers are not teachers, the head teachers are not head teachers, and the governors are all corporate idiots. They don't know their ass from their elbow. Specifically picked for that reason. Mew says, can you block Gary Peters, Sean? I put him on timeout after I asked him to chill. Have I got him on here? Right, let me have a look at this thing. Report, remove. Alright, so he should be removed. I don't know. Didn't let me throw him off, actually. Let's change the bloody format on that bit. Looks like it. Right, where are we? Neat one, okay. Yep, done that. Jerry says, have I missed out? Hi, mate, Screws and Governor. Evening, Jerry. John says they are in Edinburgh, yep. Dreghorn are also in Edinburgh. Thanks for that, John. Neat one UK says, what about TA Barracks? Yeah, exactly. But then I think John rightly pointing out that the Redford Barracks are actually in Edinburgh, which is the other side. So that's either a mistake or it's a signal that we're looking at something not quite correct. We need to know this. But I said the main thing to look out for is just watch for any strange behaviour amongst all these agents. You know, everybody has coppers in the family. teachers in the family, counsellors, etc., etc. If they start to act strange, you don't even have to ask them. Just pay attention and take that on board. And whatever, all you need to do is make sure your offspring are not in any of these schools. And, you know, like you said last time, a lot of people, well, I had to do it, I need to go on holiday. Well, I had to do it because I had to go to work. I mean, if that's your attitude on this second round, then your kids are, you might as well just murder your kids yourself. It's that simple. Because remember, it's your choice that's going to decide this. And you can't get away from that. You can in your own mindset, and if you listen to them dipsticks, but in reality, it's all been your choice. For yourself and also for your offspring. And you can't run away from that. So T.A. Berwick's, absolutely. Jerry Adams' home patch, says Ulick. Dundalk and Wuxie. Well, no, that wouldn't surprise you, would it? We did see this data telling us UK population down. Well, of course, it's nothing new. That's what I'm saying. The data itself, in relation to some event or some method that they're going to claim to be able to get rid of this, the protocols also make it clear that in a day. So if they've chosen this as the such a forerunner, then to stop it here would also stop it being used to spread the fear porn across the world. So yeah, very important. But yeah, it's time to man up, English. You've thought you were best things since sliced bread since the Second World War. It's time to prove that. Because up to now, especially after last 5 years, I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. So it's time to man up and be what it is that most people have always believed they are by definition of the fact they call themselves English. Scottish, Welsh, or even Irish. Ties into Sabrina's work. Yeah, it certainly does, Mew. Absolutely it does. And like I said, with Sabrina, it took me a while to understand what the hell she was on about. But that was my bad, because I didn't understand the data that she was pumping out. But it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. But there are just a few pointers, like, are they just going to do this for a particular time period, then out come the migrant emergency services? Or is this specific to people that did the dance? So this is part 2. So if you did part 1 and you managed to get away with it, right, you don't really want to be going into part 2, do you? You don't want to be going into part 2. That's a fact. Right, ladies and gentlemen, as an impromptu briefing as this was, I'll not keep you any longer than need be. But yeah, this document is probably going to be thrown around the internet now. And we need to know whether it's real, because if it is, then we need to pay attention. And if it's not, then we need to look at what are they trying to divert, as well as presenting fear everywhere. So, because fear, they want fear so that they can manipulate. So, these things, whichever way it is, have value to the elites. So keep that in mind. Right, chaps and chapesses, I shall see thee on the Sunday. Have a good evening. And I shall say, as always, till the next time.
electronic